Welcome back to the Intel Extreme Masters, Toronto, Canada. How you guys doing? Nice, super pumped. You guys ready for some more action? We have coming up the first Terran on stage today. How exciting is that, right? We have some Terran players. It's been a bit of a Terran drought, right? Well, this guy, he's from Denmark, and I think he's probably like the hottest rising Terran in the world. He just won the Gfinity StarCraft 2 tournament. Good-looking guy, nice and tall. Please give the warmest welcome to Team Liquid's Bunny. Come into the light, man. And his opponent from Ontario, Canada, smashing nerds today, taking out Leenock, and then behind the scenes beating Jaedong himself and eliminating him. Seriously scream so loud for HuK. This is going to be epic, and everyone on the couch is about to tell you why.
Thank you very much. Yes, the very tall Bunny and the not-so-tall HuK at the end. There is a sliding ladder or something going on. Back joined by the WCS crew. It's like having a WCS extra. Apollo and Kalaris were with you. All jokes aside right now, and all Canadian bias aside, by the way, because, you know, I understand that Mr. Jarrett Kale is Canadian, and we've got HuK who's Canadian, and the crowd here are terrifically Canadian, and they want to support their home boy. I think we need to restore some balance here a little bit, because Bunny, right now, is on a bit of a tear. Yeah, Bunny's just, as Jarrett said, one of the biggest rising stars in the European scene recently. He's winning tournaments, he's winning online, he's performing very well as well. And his skill in the game is just incredibly good. But HuK does have a lot of momentum behind him right now. 2 big wins and a crowd behind him. Absolutely. It's going to be tough, isn't it, for Bunny? But he played in a relatively hostile crowd at Gfinity. I mean, not hostile towards him so much, but they were supporting other players, and he kind of just rode over that. It's not like he's, you know, the most popular player around, because he's quite quiet. You saw him, he had to be pulled in there. You know, don't be afraid of Jarrett Kale, stand next to him. And I like that about him. I think that's terrific. It's a breath of fresh air having him around, and having him around at the very top end. We just don't see that many European Terrans rise above everything else. I mean, Lucifron, I think, probably the last big one that, you know... Yeah, Lucifron, Thorzane. Yeah, Thorzane in the past as well. It's been a couple of years since he's done something big, but it's great to have Bunny around. Yeah, Bunny was like always in the shadows, even before everyone was saying, okay, this guy's really good and he's going to be getting even better. And he just lets his game speak for him. I mean, why not? If you're this good at StarCraft, then you're always progressively getting better, and then eventually like winning tournaments, and, you know, just let your game speak. HuK, though, on the other hand, as we're watching the map orders right now, Overgrowth, Catalina, and Nimbus will be the last one if we need it. HuK has beaten, let's just put this on record, Leenock and Jaedong. Leenock and Jaedong. When we looked at this bracket, in the open bracket, none of us predicted this as the final. I think a few of us said Bunny would get there if he had a good run and we thought he would play well. I'm pretty sure no one had HuK on the radar in terms of getting past Leenock and Jaedong. Yeah, I mean, Todd said that he could beat Leenock, but I don't think he would have said he could beat both of them together there. It's a big set of wins he's got. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could argue, I suppose, that Jaedong hasn't been in the greatest of form. We saw him pretty poor in the last couple of tournaments that he's played in. Leenock similarly can blow hot and cold, but take nothing away from HuK. He's had to bring a good game here to win out of this bracket. You would never have given him a chance of getting out. He now has a legitimate shot at getting out of this break. What does that do for his confidence, Sean? I think he's going to be feeling really confident right now, especially because he knows the task ahead. You're playing against Bunny, who's well known for his SCV pulls. It's actually very, very popular in Terran versus Protoss right now. So I think he's already thinking what's likely to happen, and is already approaching the, you know, the to find out how to stop it and to solve it. Yeah. So I think he's actually probably feeling really good, and he's playing well. Bunny, on the other hand, is poised here to make the round of 16 in another big tournament. Gfinity, as we said earlier on, wasn't classified as a premier, but it had some great players in there. Good prize money, some top Korean players that he played and beat in that game. He's not going to be scared about this at all, is he?
No, not at all. I mean, Bunny here, like, again, his rise up the ranks and his ability to just perform when it needs to be when he needs to perform. And just recent form. I mean, how can you fault this guy? He is right now still in WCS Europe, here doing well through this bracket as well. He's one of the non-Korean hopes right now, is Bunny.
I just want to mention one other thing, which we sometimes forget, is the team matchups. It's Liquid versus EG.
Yeah, I don't get to see that very often anymore. It's usually Team Liquid versus Team Acer, but a good old classic one.
Yeah, this is a bit of an old classic, isn't it? Evil Geniuses versus Team Liquid. Now with some friendly banter and rivalry between the two teams as well.
It's like it's quite the classic in the team matchup, but quite the variation in these two players.
Absolutely.
I mean, HuK is we saw him playing in the GSL years and years ago now, and doing well for himself. So he's been around forever. But Bunny, he's new school. So it's this real clash of old school versus new school.
Just before we go over to the commentary scene, then quick predictions, Claris.
I was waiting for Sean to go first. Actually, I
put you on the spot on purpose.
Let me think. Wow.
All right. Well, why he thinks and then copies you? What do you think, Sean?
I think Bunny's going to win 2-1. I think HuK will definitely take a game away from him, but Bunny's in good shape right now.
Okay.
I think he's good.
James?
I'll go the other end of the spectrum, because why not?
I forced him. See, that was the double negative thing that we did to him.
2-1 HuK, because he's looking great right now.
All right, let's find out for the commentary team who they think has the upper edge in this terrific winners bracket final. One of these goes to the round of the 16. One has to fight again in the lower bracket. Let's find out who wins and who goes to the lower one.
Thanks, Paul. Good times.
Here we go.
It's going to be awesome. Thanius with me is QXC coming out to cast some Terran matches. Are you excited, man?
First Terran of the day that I get to see. You guys get to see.
I think some of the crowd here likes watching Terran.
I hope so. Otherwise, we wouldn't really have anything in common.
I guess it's not.
And that would be really sad.
We gotta stay in touch. We gotta stay in touch. There are Canadian Terrans.
Stop making me so depressed. Let's talk about the game, okay? There's a lot going on right now.
All right, spawning in the top right position, we have the blue Protoss player, the Canadian from Evil Geniuses. He is HuK.
You gotta give them a little more something to work with here. Let me show you how it's done. In the bottom left-hand corner, from Team Liquid, he is... Oh, Bunny. All right, well, they don't want you to do that. Just kidding.
It's all good.
All right, my bad.
So Bunny, man, people are favoring HuK here a little bit with the predictions, but Bunny, he is a rock-solid player. Outside of my of course, obvious bias.
Yeah, well, Bunny is a self-proclaimed ladder hero. He has been doing very, very well in a lot of things that don't matter for a long time. And it's only very recently that he's been able to translate that success into real tournament results. And I mean, obviously, we just saw it in Gfinity, which, you know, there's nothing to say bad about that. What an incredible run he had. Took down some of the best players. Most recently, though, we saw him at Red Bull Detroit, where he went out to HuK 1-2 in the round of 32. Pretty early for him to get a opponent of that caliber, but HuK was also the person that Bunny beat in Gfinity to take the finals. So we'll have to see, has he fallen off a little bit? Right now, I would say no. He's already conquered the vast majority of the opponents in his bracket. And will HuK be his next victim?
It's really tricky, right? Because we know that HuK is a very good player. I don't expect to see him do anything overly fancy in this series. But there's been a bit of a trend. I feel like a lot of Protoss players slowly the Terran matchup is becoming the worst matchup for a lot of guys out there. As you know, with the Widowmine changes most recently, you kind of have to play Colossus, and then it can be pretty difficult to hold off some of the ghost timings with SCV pulls against Colossi openings, at least.
Yeah, a lot of the troubles that Terran was having kind of went away, and that had to do with the maps and also with the developments of just understanding. Terran players got better at defending some of the blink play, and the maps that were so good for it went away, and it does look like a very strong period of Terran dominance maybe coming up here, or at least a contention, as opposed to what we were seeing for a couple of months there, where it was like Terran just didn't really do anything, unless your name was Tasia.
Yeah.
And then you still won tournaments anyway because you're Tasia or
because you're Tasia.
Yeah,
it's really, it's really all it needs to be said.
There were 4 races at that time, and it was in order: Tasia, Protoss, or Terran.
Tasia is, of course, another one of one of the scary players here. Looking forward to seeing tomorrow.
Yep.
Bunny's opened up with a very standard 3 racks after his Reaper expand. Huck, gateway expand into robotics facility.
Yeah, it's going to get scouted.
He's tucked the Robo away in a weird spot, but whether or not he kills this Reaper, we still have a very standard game so far. No Forge from Huck leaves me believing that maybe he could do something crazy with the Chrono Boost he has saved when this Robo finishes, but I think fast Immortal pushes are still really coin flippy in this matchup.
Yeah, well, any early timing has that same kind of respect because you're investing the money to make the timing happen minutes before it actually happens in almost every situation. And that the counter investment of bunkers or photon cannons, additional units, is always going to be easier for the defender because it takes time to get across the map. It takes time to make these immortals, to cut probes, to do... There's so many signs for any kind of early aggression long before that actually happens. The big thing that changes that because Bunny scouted that Robo at that timing, it's literally impossible for Protoss to have more than one tech building with this opening at that time. So when Bunny sees the Robo, he can immediately, without any fear, take his army and move it across the map. He can take both watchtowers. He knows he doesn't have to leave anything at home. There's no threat of an Oracle. There's no threat of Dark Templar. And that's going to allow him to at least get some kind of pressure in these early parts of the game.
And that's exactly what we're seeing from him. He's opened up with a very quick concussive shell so that if any Stalkers are out on the map, he would have gotten a free kill. Now, he will need to use Photon Overcharge to defend against this, but he also sends the Reaper in at the same time. And Bunny, he walks up, he's like, yeah, I'll try to kill a probe if I can, but even if I don't get anything, well, the Reaper doesn't get behind there either.
He kind of lost. There were two for him right now. What he needed to do was rally the Reaper to start scouting around the base and then start controlling the army at the natural, because the army at the natural has to be controlled. If you leave that army alone, it'll start auto-attacking the Nexus, and that's just not what you're going to do. Without Stim, you're not going to be able to kill the Nexus, and so what Bunny really wanted is to get in close and kill as many probes as he can. And the Reaper just kind of AFK'd, and Bunny right now is a little bit in the dark. So he knows there's a Robo, but that's it. He doesn't know Forge. At this point, it's possible that there's a Dark Templar type of build coming. Oh, and HuK is very overextended right now. Good force fields from him.
Wow,
and
that's actually really nice force fields.
Fantastic force fields.
I was going to say, that could have gotten ugly for him very quickly, but picks off all of this. Trades them. He loses the Mothership Core, but this completely stifles any aggression that Bunny can do. It's the only unit he's lost all game. Right. And now this Warp Prism harass is about to begin.
Yeah, that 100 gas is good. It looked like both players literally had no idea that was going to happen.
It was like, oh, they bumped into each other. It's like, well.
Well met. I was definitely expecting Bunny. Bunny could have immediately focus fired down that Mothership Core, or focus fired down the sentries, or at least started to split his units up, back away micro, but he didn't really do anything at all. The force fields, HuK reacting just a little bit faster, gets those force fields down, the Zealots clean them up, no problem. And now HuK has so much tempo right now. Yeah. Warp Prism outside of his main, a probe at the third spots this command center. Wouldn't be surprised to see a probe. Pylon go down in just a moment here.
Imagine if he already had a pylon and he harassed both bases at once with the units that he's already lost. Bunny would have a very difficult time protecting either side. And now most of his forces are at the front. Stim is about to finish. He loads up in his medevacs.
Yep, and this...
HuK, his observer, you see that army leave, man. That's triggering. Go, go, go.
Yeah, he only saw it with just a little bit of the observer. I wouldn't be surprised. The observer's now checking. He sees that there's basically no units here. He may wait until this medevac commits to his base.
Yeah, because then as long as he thinks he can defend without having to micro too much, I guess the Warp Prism won't require too much control.
Well, yeah, so the defense and the attack here is more micro-intensive for the Terran player because the units just aren't as strong in a head-on fight. Marines against Zealots, you have to be microing back and forth, and so the more things that happen at once, the better it is. And a little bit of a run-by going down in the natural.
Yeah, he moves units there. The drop lands, and he's trying to get the Colossus, but the Zealots are all over the main base. Bunny is not getting what he wants from this trade at all. You said HuK is a little bit too fancy of a play for Bunny to pull off while HuK is harassing him.
Yep, and this is just how this part of the game works like this. The Terran army, when it's in these small groups, does not function effectively against Zealots. Once the ball of Terran gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you can start having these fights without microing, but right now HuK is just stretching Bunny's multitasking to its limits. Now he's up 40 supply.
You know, these are the plays I think in the early stage of the game. You know, Bunny kind of set him up with that aggression early on that didn't accomplish much, throwing away lots of units, and then when you have no units, taking what little you can put out and just attacking with it. It just hasn't worked for him. HuK is all over Bunny. He's at twice his supply, and I don't think you need to be biased either way to know that that's a very good position for the Protoss.
And HuK is coming in here to try and finish the game. The War Prism warping in some Stalkers. One Colossus with range. GG, well played. HuK takes game number 1.
Look at that smirk.
Yeah, he knows. He's feeling it. Whatever lack of confidence he might not have been feeling before when we talked to him in that interview after his very first series, I think he's found his place here. At least today, in this open bracket, he's feeling ready to move on, to take it one more game away. Now he's going to relieve his...
Canadian enjoying that home field advantage, man.
Yep.
It's got to feel good winning on a stage in your own country. HuK, one game away now, one map win away from moving on to the group stage tomorrow, which would be a big weight off of his shoulder. He's going to have a couple matches. It's not quite the sudden death scenario once you get into that stage.
Yeah, and HuK, he just played so smart in that last game. The kind of the bumping of armies was perhaps a little bit incidental. It didn't seem very calculated from either player, right? It was just HuK happened to react to it and respond to it and get his force fields down faster. That gave him a really big supply advantage that led to the possibility of so many simultaneous attacks. It's like the more supply your opponent has, the less places you can defend and attack, you can influence at a time because you have just less army on the map. And so Bunny loses that early supply, tries to go for that aggression, but does not really have, you know, an extra 12 supply at home would have defended that War Prism no problem.
Yeah, I think if you're able to split, like if you have the supply, imagine that he lost with that early poke. If that's back home, if he loads up his Medivacs, then he has a couple units left over that he can play with. Whereas the War Prism goes into his base as he starts those Marines and Marauders, and you take at least 25 seconds to build, so that's 25 seconds for Zealots to kill all your SCVs.
Yeah, and the other thing that happened is those Zealots were in his mineral line at the exact same time that Bunny was microing at HuK's base. And it's just impossible to manage those two situations at the same time. And HuK knew all he has to do is send the War Prism in and unload the Zealots. And that's a zero. Once that is set up, there's a zero attention commitment there, assuming there's not already an overwhelming force, which, because of the supply that Bunny lost earlier on, is a pretty fair assumption.
Yeah, especially because Bunny wanted to drop too. Like, there was just way too much distracting him. Of course, we're loaded into game number 2 now. And our first player in the top right, he's in blue. He's up 1-0, man. He could go on to the group stage with this game. Give it up for EG's HuK.
Nice. Good.
These Canadians really seem to like this guy.
And in the left side of the map, currently down 0-1. He needs your support. Make sure you give it up. Make some noise for Liquid Bunny.
And it's been cool to see Bunny pop up, man. He's one of those non-Korean players that over the course of StarCraft 2, the last year or so is when you've heard everything about him.
Yeah,
getting signed to Team Liquid. You didn't really hear about him at all prior to that.
Well,
and at least, you know, unless you pay a lot of very close attention, he's not the guy that's going out and winning tournaments, whereas HuK has a much longer career history, I'd say, in StarCraft 2.
For sure. I'm laughing a little bit because you say you, and I know you mean you all, as in the general populace. But when you say you, I think me. And I played Bunny. We've had days where we just, like, all we did was hit each other on ladder. We play like 6 games. We play, you know, he had a weird sleep schedule, so we play like 6 games on EU. And then EU would fall asleep, and I'd like switch to NA, and I'd be like, all right, let's play some games on NA. And then I hit Bunny 4 more times because Bunny was staying up till 6 or 7 a.m. and really nice guy, really good to talk to him. He's got a lot of insight about the game, and let's talk a little bit about the builds here. So we've got very normal opening from HuK, except he's only got 2 on gas.
Yeah, it seems like he could try to use this to squeeze out a faster Nexus if he really wants. And it's a Reaper opening again from Bunny, but on this map, I have to say, with the amount of SCVs he has on gas, I would not be opposed to some sort of 2-base factory play.
Yes, he's keeping 3 on gas. Usually, the standard is as soon as the Reaper starts, you go 2 on gas, And as soon as the reactor starts, or you have 50 gas, you go only 1 on gas. And that's basically what you would do to optimize for that early command center, the supply depot that you need to not get supply blocked, and the additional barracks. And
yeah, so Nexus is going to start up for Huck. Reactor starts up for Bunny.
Yep.
He still has a reasonable bit of gas, so I'm kind of expecting now to see that factory start up.
Is absolutely going to be a factory play at this. Yeah, I don't. It could be an eBay. It could be a 2 racks eBay, but it's unlikely. Normally, you'd mine a little bit less gas than that. Reaper does go in. Reaper has 1 kill, which was in his base, so I guess we kind of glossed over that. But that's a nice little pickup for Bunny. It doesn't mean it's like, oh, 1 kill, like, oh, Huck messed up so bad, like now he's no, like one probe kill is kind of acceptable. You'd hope to not lose any, but it's really just a little nice thing for Bunny here.
Yeah, could have been a lot worse for sure.
Yep.
I think when you go for builds like this as Huck, playing standard it's not necessarily bad, but if he opened up with anything other than a robo facility and a widow mine plants down in his base, that creates a very tricky situation. So he does start the factory, and the only reason I bring this up is this map is we've seen sometimes players go for builds like Blink on it, Stargate.
Here's the Reaper.
Will get that scout.
What's up?
Seeing that robo is nice.
And this is so in the last game I said when you see the early robo, it gives you license to move across the map with the 3 racks opening. In this situation, when you see the robo, then you know what to expect in terms of your drop. You know that you don't have to worry about an early turret, early Vikings, because there's no threat of an Oracle. And so Bunny can feel more comfortable here actually committing all of his units to the drop. It's not the 3 racks push, but it's it's the same kind of idea.
Yeah. I think there's still a lot of damage that can be done with this despite the robotics facility being prepared though. And Huck still hasn't actually scouted anything at all.
Yeah, well, the Stalker is moving out here. He does see that there's no base. The thing is, even though he didn't scout anything, he saw the Reaper, and the Reaper, especially in the current meta, there's only 1 build. Like, it's a Reaper, and then you expand, and then there's something else. But having not scouted, like...
Not knowing that there's a factory is the really big problem.
Right. He knows that there's an expansion, basically. Nobody is playing 1 base anything. It's just too easy to defend that kind of stuff. With the way Protosses are naturally opening. He'll have to be very careful here against this drop. The Observer
might fly right by this medevac.
The Observer's going to see the medevac, but he did not see the Marines here. So there is a chance that he will overcommit to his main, and the Marines will go into the natural and do quite a bit of damage. The medevac is now boosting in.
Okay, kills first Marine. Mines are going to try to burrow, but there's not really any space to do that with the Observer nearby. These Marines running into the natural are quite nice, though.
Yep, and he's going to burrow 2 mines in the natural here. This is going to give him a lot of control over the natural right now.
Almost because the Mothership Core.
Yep, 1 mine hits the Mothership Core. He's going to move in with the Marines.
Yeah, this army doesn't have a lot of damage output. Kills another Stalker. He's moving up. He's killed the Sentry. This is actually really damn good for Bunny, I'd say.
Yeah, he needs to keep that medevac alive, though. That gives the Marines a lot of longevity. It allows them to not just get kited forever. 2 Observers in the natural. That means Huck has used the Select All Army hotkey, just sending those Observers there. The Widow Mine's going to go down, and now Bunny has to be so careful with that medevac. He cannot allow that to die. He's actually gonna get out. He knows.
I think he's gotten his money's worth.
Yeah. And I think there's kind of 2 things there. Is 1, the Mothership Core just got 100 energy, and I think Bunny was definitely aware of that. And as soon as the Photon Overcharge went off, it would have killed the medevac. The other thing is, once that attack starts, your opponent is making nothing but Stalkers. You absolutely know that's happening. And it's not going to take very long before that Stalker count is going to be overwhelming for your Marine force. So Bunny making the very smart decision to back up there, consolidating his position. If we take a look at the Workers tab right now, Workers are just about even, only 1 more worker. Actually, Bunny has 1 more worker than Huck, and in TVP...
That's a big deal.
That is a huge deal. 2 mules being dropped now. That's on the order of 8 workers or so. So you can see Bunny has a significant income advantage right now.
Yeah, especially considering that the units that Bunny traded, just those 2 Widow Mines basically, for a handful of very expensive gas units, and at this point in the game, as a Protoss, you don't want to build sentries. It's just going to slow down your other tech. Even though he has a Robo Bay, he's just now at 10 minutes starting Colossus range. He does not have a Colossus on the map, and he can't really afford to start one.
Yeah.
Now he's going to get one, but it's going to cut into his Gateway army. Look how small it is.
Yeah, and this, like you said, this Colossus is going to be done at like 11 minutes, 11, 15 minutes. That is incredibly late Colossus. And as our observer and Feza showed us, in the units lost tab, it's pretty even. The thing is that HuK lost a lot more gas. And like you were saying, gas is so important for the Protoss army. It's a weird thing as a Terran player to play Protoss, because as a Terran, in almost every matchup, it's all about minerals.
Yeah.
If you have minerals, you have an army. As Protoss, especially in this matchup, if you don't have, like, every single upgrade under the sun, then minerals don't do anything for you because your zealots are just worthless. And actually, forget all that. Big drop coming in here now.
Yeah, the Colossus is in position with these Stalkers. I like if you can keep the Colossus there, it'll push, if he tries to just drop on top of your army. But this drop in the natural is nice. However, the multi-ship core being a bit lackadaisical, I guess you can just defend this without it.
Yep.
That's pretty nice.
His observers were in really good position. He saw both the drop into the natural and the drop into the main, so he was able to put his army in position very easily, and that's really the key for HuK right now because of the supply disparity. Bunny is up a full 30 supply, and that means in any head-on engagement, Bunny should have a decisive advantage.
Yeah.
But as long as HuK is able to coordinate, use the terrain to his advantage, like the ramp at his natural, and intercept medevacs before they're able to fully unload, he should be able to at least stabilize for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, HuK starting up this Templar Archives. Oh, excuse me. He's going to load up a huge drop.
Yep.
I was about to ask about the SCV pulls, but I guess this could be a game-ending move, too. He's going to move in.
And
now, there's a lot of Stalkers. He drops right on top of them and the Colossus. This is a pretty ballsy play, man.
And he actually misclicked, so the medevacs didn't unload as quickly as they could, but one Colossus goes down, second Colossus goes down. Widow Mines are going to try and burrow here, and it looks like Bunny has basically reset the Colossus count for HuK. Can HuK even clean this up right now?
Wow, that Widow Mine even gets a double kill on the Zealots, and these units are starting to get outside the range of the Photon Overcharge. He's just straight up killing HuK's army, and I think Bunny's got this one in the bag almost. Like, at this point, there's just not enough. There's not enough army to stop even a frontal assault by Bunny with all the units that he's built back home.
Yeah, HuK has lost so many units at this point, and again, it's so many gas units. Losing the sentries, losing the Colossus. You know, he warps in 6 Zealots, but he doesn't have charge. He doesn't have an upgrade advantage. Like, Zealots are not going to do hardly anything at all. Like, at this point in the game, the Zealot's primary function is just to get in the way so that your other units like Colossus, or if he was going for High Templar, are actually doing the damage. He has a Templar Archives, but he has no Storm, he has no actual Templar, he has no gas, and Bunny's on 3 bays, he's mining fine, and Bunny's actually going to push into the natural here and go for the kill. I'm not sure if HuK can really hold this. One Colossus does not quite do much. The Vikings are flying over there.
Yeah, I mean, one Colossus just simply isn't going to do the trick here. There's way too much bio from Bunny. He's going to storm up this ramp and win this game, tying the series up 1-1, 2 non-Korean players. One of them, at the very least, if you're cheering for the non-Koreans, guaranteed to get into the group stage.
Yep, and Bunny definitely shows that he is, I think he was taken a little off guard in that first game. He seems to have regained his focus, brought himself back together, and took that second game in a very decisive fashion. The Widow Mine drop
really
was just...
It really set him up. It didn't even end up being the Widow Mines, but just that they forced out that Photon Overcharge, and then all the Marines get into the natural, and then the Mines are able to kill a unit or two. But the position he got with the medevac on the ramp, I think, was really nice.
Yeah, it wasn't... So the power of the medevacs, like you said, is not attacking the main. It's not like, oh, I can circumvent the natural and attack the main. The power is forcing the overcharge in the main. And that has more to do with... So whether or not HuK could really defend in the main is a question that you could go back and analyze the replay, and you're like, well, how much stuff did HuK actually have? Could he have played a little bit safer so that was okay? But in the moment, the snap decision, you know, you see the medevac, it's like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to overcharge because I'm not going to take that risk. And that always is going to create an opening, especially when the overcharge is in the main. The safer thing for the Protoss is always to overcharge your natural and then use Stalkers and prevent unloading in your main, because it's much easier to prevent the medevac from unloading by catching it at the edge rather than to prevent, because in the natural you can actually have more than 8 supply attack you at once. You can have the medevacs units plus all the Marines regroup and hit as a ground army. So that's definitely the more vulnerable spot. And part of that had to do with what you said. Huck didn't scout.
Yeah, he wasn't aware of it until the moment that it arrived at his front door, and in that moment of panic, you're right. It could when you see that, you're like, well, you have to make a decision because we know it was Widow Mines and 2 Marines, but there are players that have done really fast Hellion drops.
Yep.
He could have even tried to run the mine into the natural and drop the Marines. Like there's all sorts of craziness that people bust out time and again in this matchup. But the next map, I think most people generally agree, kind of pushes us towards a more standard game, and I think I like this map for Terran vs. Protoss myself.
This is definitely a more macro-oriented map up until 3 bases, and then it becomes pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Because the 4th base, for anybody who was watching earlier and saw Snoot versus Hero on this map, the 4th base is very exposed. The first 3 bases are pretty well contained. It's relatively easy to drop what's like the in base, or the natural basically. But if you can secure that, there's really not a whole lot of opportunities. But taking that 4th base becomes a real challenge. It's so far apart from the other bases. But because of the in-base natural, CC first, Nexus first, very, very common.
Yeah, Nimbus seems to be one of the maps that have been added in this season's pool that people have really managed to rally around. They're liking it a lot. I can't say I disagree with them. It's definitely with how open those later bases can be. I think even with how open that area outside the 3rd base can be, SCV pulls happen occasionally if you can get a Protoss that tries to expand too quickly. But the drops too, like it's such an easy segue to go straight over from where that 4th is to the 3rd.
Yep.
And for a Protoss, that's really frustrating to deal with.
Yeah, one of the most defining characteristics when you're thinking about like, is this map good for Terran versus Protoss, is compare the by ground distance to the by air distance.
Yeah. Because
Terran, in basically starting at the 10-minute mark and going for pretty much the whole game, is very reliant on using those medevacs to outmaneuver the Protoss, whereas the Protoss is almost exclusively using a ground army, with the rare exception of like Phoenix Colossus type styles that don't see too much.
And not really popular. You make a great point, though. As long as the ground rush distance can sometimes be, depending on the spawns, it's really never hard to drop on this map. And I think that's one of the reasons why Terran players like it. But we're going to have to see, guys, that this is the deciding match. This is game number 3, and the winner of this game will advance on to the group stage here at the Intel Extreme Masters in Toronto. And our blue player in the top right, representing Evil Geniuses, the Canadian himself, it is HuK.
It's getting late here in Canada, unfortunately. Anyway, in the bottom right-hand corner, tying up the series 1-1, is he your new foreigner hope? He is Liquid Bunny! There we go.
Bunny?
I'm trying. Oh, sorry.
What's up?
Oh, I'm experimenting with a new way of doing openings that doesn't involve destroying my throat. I like to think it's a little more musical. I don't know if that's...
adding a little melody never hurt anybody, as far as I'm aware.
And supply depot at the front, pylon. So we'll have to see. Is HuK going to go for Nexus first?
It's looking like it. Look how many probes he has queued up on this Nexus. Yeah. He's like five queued up. It's pretty sick.
So basically what this is going to come down to, the whole tempo of this game is going to be decided by, do you know what I'm going to say?
Whether he goes factory or how much damage the Reaper does.
All right, it wasn't a fair question. Whether or not Bunny scouts north or scouts west.
Okay, I agree. I think the Reaper can get a lot of damage done. That's why we're discussing this.
So the thing that happens is if Bunny scouts west with his SEV first, then he will have the opportunity to choose to build a second Reaper and commit to a bunker before his command center. If he scouts north, he will have committed to the reactor before he sees that his opponent went Nexus first, and he will not have these same opportunities for aggression. He'll basically be forced into a macro game where he can only do damage with that first Reaper. And that's what we're going to see here. This is by far the worst situation, or the worse of the two situations for Bunny. Obviously, since it's not diagonal, Bunny will still scout with the Reaper and he'll see it. But one thing that can be so nice is to just say, you see the Nexus first and you're like, all right, I'm going to make 3 Reapers in a row. Like, let's see how much damage I can do. Bunny obviously is not going to have that opportunity. Reactor does go down, Command Center is going to start, and you can see the Protoss's Nexus is about 80 seconds ahead of the Terran's Command Center, which is going to translate into several probes worth of advantage. Not only just one probe is 17 seconds, but also the extra chrono boost.
Yeah, and even this probe pulling the Reaper away, of course. Now he's going to move in. The Cybernetics core is not done yet, so there's no ranged way to deal with this Reaper, and Bunny now realizes it. Of course, I think generally as a Terran, if you're up against this and you're like, oh, well, I guess this is something I wish I made more Reapers for. Yeah, how many probes do you usually want to get? I think if you can get like 3, that's like a really nice space to be in.
Yeah, it'll depend a little bit on how Bunny transitions. So if he's going to go for additional barracks, then
it's a factory.
Yeah, so he doesn't need to get, or he does need to get a little bit more. But what the real key here is to do enough damage that the factory follow-up is going to be very difficult to defend. Either there's not going to be a robo in time, or there's not enough stalkers, or he catches his opponent before he really has out any units. And HuK actually making, I think, a significant blunder here. The main Nexus up to 75 energy. The Stalker and Mothership Core could have been significantly earlier there. There's really...
Yeah, he didn't chrono boost either.
Yeah, there's really... He just didn't seem to really use that chrono boost as appropriate as he could have. But now he's stabilized, and this is the point at which, like, the Reaper is not going to do anything. He can use it to scout, but that's it. And HuK can very easily just spend his chrono boost on his probe count. You can see that HuK is now up 5 probes, and Bunny's Command Center is just now finishing. And I would say that the position is slightly favored for Bunny because of the 3 workers that he killed, but HuK is, once all those chrono boosts convert into additional probes, he'll be sitting at a nice advantage.
Yeah, let's see what this follow-up can do, though. I'm a little bit interested if he's going to go for the Hellion run-by with a Marine drop, or if he's going to try to just drop the Hellions alone and see what he can get from them.
Ooh, and is the Stalker... No, the Stalker's not going to be able to see this. The Stalker will see 5 Marines, and this is... Depending on HuK's intuition here, he may realize like 5 Marines at this point is too few for any kind of barracks follow-up. And so he may recognize that there's the possibility of a factory. He may also just think his opponent is hiding Marines. And that's a very tough call to make, because there's no reason that all the Marines would be at the front. The medevac is moving out now. 6 Hellions moving out on the map. And Bunny has no idea what HuK's tech is, but he doesn't really care. He's just going to make this attack work as best he can.
And the medevac arrives at the natural. The Mothership Core is here. Marines are going to start to drop out. Immediately picks them up. He runs over the wall. Stalker and Zealot not in position, and he manages to get the Hellions in without another photon overcharge. Bunny might just have enough to kill him here.
And, well, the Hellions are going to do so much damage. And this is kind of what happened with that early opening. He lost so many probes that his transition was just too slow. The Stalkers are... Oh, he's got 3 Stalkers now, but he's lost so many probes. Bunny is now up 8 workers.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost nothing here. The Hellions catch the probes running away from the main base. He kills those. The Natural is the only safe haven of sorts, but he's got 1 base saturation now. Well, Bunny, I mean, he's got everything he could possibly want. He's got a probe lead at this point. There's no tech from that robo. Nary an observer at this point because he has to keep it at home, so he can't even scout what Bunny's follow-up is.
Yep, and he's actually going to try and end the game a little bit. No, the extra warp in from HuK is enough to stop it, but with a 12 worker deficit, HuK is going to be... the income for Bunny is incredibly good compared to HuK's right now. It's going to be very hard. He's basically going to have to defend like a miracle defense for the next 10 minutes or so in order to catch up here. He's got no upgrades going for him. He's got no Robo Bay, no Twilight. You can see he's spreading out the observers now. Oh, a little drop here. The Hellions do fall into the natural, get some worker kills, but he's actually going to clean up all the Hellions now, so that threat is at least gone.
Yeah, it defends that next push. But you said it. I mean, there's going to be a hailstorm of Marine Marauder at the base of HuK. In the next couple of minutes, he's getting double engineering bay. It feels good when you're comfortable enough in Terran vs. Protoss to build 2 engineering bays at once.
Yep, and I'm not actually sure why he built 2 engineering bays at once. Like, I understand the thought behind it.
He doesn't have the gas.
Yeah, he doesn't have anywhere close to the amount of money he needs to do that. Like, he only has one medevac building and a second eBay. But this is kind of a result of focusing so much on that pressure. And probably what happened is he either forgot to start the gases in his natural, or they finished and he didn't put additional SCVs on them. So he's like, all right, we're going to build those gases. We're going to go double eBay. And we're going to micro these 3 Hellions as intensely as I possibly can. Oh, yeah, I don't have gas. And that's a pretty typical thing to happen. And one thing that's interesting now is Bunny is going into... he's basically recognized how far ahead he is, and he's not taking any precautions. He's just...
I mean, he's got his third command center, like you said, the double engineering bay, and I don't think... There's too many things he's concerned about. He just wants to make sure that he doesn't throw his lead too badly.
Right.
And I mean, HuK, well, this is where the miracle defense has to start.
Yep. And the observers are giving him some good information about this. And again, it's all about if you can keep the medevacs from unloading, you have a good chance of defending them. But as soon as they actually get units out, it becomes so much harder.
I mean, just look at this. This army cannot compare to the forces that Bunny has on the map. And he's basically saying, yeah, I'm not afraid to just drop everywhere because I know that in a straight-up engagement, Stalkers do not beat Marine Marauder, even with the assistance of a photon cannon and a dozen probes and a tiny choke point.
Yeah.
This army's just going to completely smash through what HuK has left.
And HuK just on no supply at this point. Bunny with over 100, HuK down to 30. GG! Liquid Bunny advances into group stage 2-1 over HuK.
Not bad by the Liquid Terran player, as he made a nice little run here in our open bracket. And I'm actually really looking forward. We didn't have too many. He's actually the only Terran, I think, in the open bracket stage aside from a local Canadian player.
Yes, that's correct. And he made it out in
Terran represent
the winners area. And yeah, HuK now has to fight. You can see he's sweating a little bit there. Probably felt pretty good after that first game. A very decisive victory. It looked like Bunny he kind of had no idea what was going on. And then it was HuK's turn to appear confused. Snoot there congratulating Bunny, welcoming him to the open bracket, or the group stages here. And Bunny's got to be pleased with that. These IEMs are such a difficult tournament to get into, not just the pre-qualifiers, but the open brackets at all these events featuring players like Leenock and Jaedong, Hero, Snoot. For Bunny to make it into that bracket, it gives him a little bit of hope maybe for BlizzCon as well.
It's awesome. He's one of the players that he kind of has, it's a little bit of a long shot, but it's not impossible.
Yep. With a solid performance here, he may be able to make that happen. And for today, at least, his time is done. He'll be packing up, going and resting, probably maybe a little celebration dinner. But otherwise, he's got a long day ahead of him, a long road, if he really wants to make a further dent in this tournament.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how far he can make it, of course, as one of our non-Korean players that we're really looking forward to seeing move on, and as you said, fight for that spot at BlizzCon. But we're gonna hear now from the guys over on the couch. Paul, what's going on?
Thanks very much, Nathaniel. Yeah, welcome back to the couch area. Gents are back with me. We've got Todd and Kalaris just to wrap up things on that last match, and also of today as well, just overall. It's been a fairly short first day, of course, because we couldn't get in here as early as we would have liked, and it's been quite a late finish as well. And we've had some long games in the middle of that, mainly thanks to those pesky Swarm hosts, of course, which I won't go into too much, but they take a little while to pan out. They weren't necessarily the most traditional Swarm hosts that we've seen in the past. These were a bit more interesting. We saw some very interesting tactics in those games. Overall today, though, what are your thoughts from what you've seen in the open bracket?
I'm very impressed with our foreigners, man.
Yeah.
They
went full Korean on us.
HuK beat 2 Koreans, Leenock and Jaedong. Bunny beat Oz.
Yep.
So a lot of them have had good performances now. They met in the finals, meaning at least one of them advanced for sure. So very impressed. Yeah. I did not particularly expect that. Like, you look at the open brackets, we talked about it earlier in the day.
I mean, they had opportunities. There were genuine opportunities, and they proved that. Obviously, Bunny's gone through. But you're right, they weren't... on paper, they didn't really stand out as the most obvious candidates to make it the way through. I mean, we've talked about this being the most stacked Intel Extreme Masters. One of the most stacked tournaments in StarCraft 2, I think, for a very long time when you look back at the quality that we've got. and it's harder for these guys to go through. I mean, you heard Life talking about how he had to qualify earlier and how hard it was just to qualify for the tournament, let alone get into the open brackets and then get into the group. So, great achievement for Bunny. Where do you think that puts him right now in the whole scheme of things? How far can he go realistically?
Well, it really depends on which group he gets put in, I guess. Because although that being said, every single group they have is that we have is so stacked.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure he's looking at any particular groups and is like saying, oh, that's where he really wants to be. I think he'll just take it as it comes.
Okay, I don't know if we can look at the groups right now and maybe show you the 4 groups that we've got. Can we do that? Yeah, we can. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. At the back, Group A, Polt, Zest and Tasia. Still one to go in there. Could be one of Life or Bunny, of course. Group B, Violet, Yoda and HuK. That's the one Life wants. He actually wants the 2 Zergs. Group C, Massa, of course, from Canada. First and SOS, or $0 as we call him these days. Group D, Scarlet, Flash and MC. I'm just thinking, guys, if Life goes in that group, how absurd would that group be in Group D, not Group B? I was talking about D, not B.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty insane. I think both players that are going to be coming out of the open bracket will want to be in Group B or C, I think.
Yeah.
Not A or D.
They're all ridiculously hard groups, but they're slightly less hard.
I think.
Bunny just made it out too. Like,
Yeah.
knowing the trouble he has with TvT, I don't think he's ever going to want to be in Group A.
Or D.
Yeah. Or B, I guess, because there's Yoda. So nowhere really.
So we'll put
C,
Bunny,
guys,
so we'll
let's-
put,
there is
we'll
Mazza.
put- it's fine, I'll fix this. We put Bunny in Group E.
You guys.
He's in Group E on his own, it's fine.
I guess so.
No problem.
Is that E for European because he's our first one there?
Good point, nicely made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. It's nice to have one there.
Yeah, absolutely is, because he's the first and the only one through. Snoop potentially could still go through. Now, a quick update for you as well if you are tuned in online. Thank you for tuning in today. Live coverage from Toronto of Intel Extreme Masters. Back in Canada for the first time in a few years, that's for sure. And we've enjoyed our first day. Unfortunately, it has come to an end right now, though, because, well, they've closed the place. And frankly, we're the last ones in here. I think security might be on their way right now. So we're going to close things down. And all joking aside, we have made sure that the players looked after. They don't want to start their games backstage or out on the stage and potentially have to stop midway through. So what we've agreed to do is bring them back tomorrow, first thing in the morning at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we'll do our very best to make sure we've got some community streams. Hopefully Rotterdam will be around. Maybe Rifkin, if he's watching right now, maybe you can drop me an email and we'll get you up on doing the other game as well. And then from 10:30 a.m. tomorrow local time, we will continue with the group stage, the round of 16 groups A through to D. It'll all be played out tomorrow in front of your very eyes, and of course over the next 2 days as well, and then the grand finals at the weekend to crown our Intel Extreme Masters champion. Stardust, what are you doing right now? Stardust is just wandering around the venue, lost, I think. I don't know what he's doing. But that is it from the guys here. Thank you very much to Todd and to Claris, and also to the rest of our commentary team. QXC in the background, Apollo as well, and also Nathanius and our observer, of course, Mr. Infeza, doing his usual top job here at Intel Extreme Masters. That's it for day one. We'll see you tomorrow from 9 o'clock in the morning.